Hi, Mom.
Hi, Polly.
Welcome, everybody, to a whole nother episode of Hold On, I'm Calling My Mom. We are always and forever grateful you guys are joining us. Thanks for tuning in. We got a good episode that's in store for everybody today.
I think this is going to be a great episode.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we're diehard fans of Jess, who will be joining us from Mind Your Boundaries. Before we get into the episode, though, if only people heard, we were on FaceTime the other night. And for whatever reason, she started talking about, like, I think it clicked how many times you really go to ShopRite and how much you, like, really, really love this place that you're like, I got my ShopRite. And, like, you were so hyped
Because
about
I'm
it.
the kind of person, I don't like to do food shopping at like one time and do a big thing and then bring it home and have it, know what I'm going to make every day for dinner. So on my days off, I'm like, oh, I'm in the mood for this or I want that. And then I go to ShopRite. So I go to ShopRite multiple times a week. So Paul and Jordy make fun of me because they'll be like, oh, what'd you do today? And I'll be like, oh, I went to ShopRite. When Jordy was here one time, I took him with me and he was amazed with ShopRite. He was like, these aisles are so big and long and
Well,
I
no,
mean,
what
that doesn't sound very appropriate, does it?
maybe that's why he liked it. What I'm thought was so funny is that you were like, this was like a deal. You were like, oh, it's a ShopRite deal. You're like, I get my two side. Like, it was the funniest shit.
I decided I'm not going to cook. So I'm like, oh, I ordered from ShopRite.
Go figure.
And I was like, we can pick our sides, which are green bean casserole or green bean almondine without the almondine.
Uh-oh, wow. Y'all are living big.
And
Okay.
2 additional sides. And then they were like, how many rolls do you get? And we get a dessert. And I just started like hysterically laughing because I was like, this
Rice pudding?
sounds
Rice pudding?
no pumpkin cheesecake mousse or something, right?
I
Yeah.
just realized you say pumpkin. Pumpkin.
It's
Pumpkin.
pumpkin. What is
Pumpkin.
it?
Pumpkin.
Pumpkin.
Pumpkin. And
Thanks.
pumpkin. You said pumpkin like the contestant from Flavor of Love. Pumpkin. Pumpkin. No P. P silent.
So I was crying, and so were you.
It was hilarious. It was just like you made it seem like it was like this 5-star Michelin restaurant. You're like, I got my ShopRite casserole and I got my cranberries, and we even get a dessert for $11.99. I'm like, you really are like the spokesperson for ShopRite. It's crazy. Like it was like this
It was
deal.
just hilarious. Yeah.
You like always like the sweet
Potato
stuff.
casserole, the green beans. Yeah. Cranberry. I love cranberry.
I don't like mixing the sweet with like the savory. Like to me, they're too separate. It's like when people put fruit in a salad, it's not the vibe. Stop doing it.
Yeah, it's like the sweet and the
Mhm.
salty. When you have
No.
something sweet, you need something salty.
Yeah,
Or something sweet.
I'd rather just eat that and then like eat some chocolate like M&Ms or something or chocolate chips afterwards. Like I don't want it to be in the same vicinity. You know what I mean by that? Like
Yeah.
I don't want chicken meat touching strawberries. Like that's weird to me. Like that should be illegal. Like in a salad.
I don't want chicken meat touching strawberries either.
But if you get a salad, like
cranberries, yes.
Yeah, see, what's the difference at that point?
Because it just says chicken meat
meat?
and strawberries.
But if you get a salad that's a berry salad, you got like protein in there, and it's like chicken and shit. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, but then it depends on like the whole setup. I could do that, like the apples and the cranberries with the chicken and the pecans or pecans.
Not the pecans.
Whatever. Pecans or pecans. Tomato.
Well, speaking of a good meal, I was running around town getting some things, because I was like, oh, maybe I'll make like a little dish or something, because I'm not Susie Homemaker in the kitchen throwing down usually. So I was like, I don't know, I've seen a couple recipes. Let me just do something fun.
Yes, because you are like me and you do go to the store every day to get your meals. It's rarely that you don't sit and have everything at the house and have your meals. When we talk, you're like, oh, I'm at Whole Foods. Oh, I'm at Ralph's. You go to the stores every day to get your meals, I feel like. I feel like that's a lot like me.
Well, so I was on my way. I was on a different side of town. Like I was like in Beverly Hills. I live in West Hollywood, so I was in Beverly Hills, and I like was down by the canyon, and I was like leaving a friend's house to go to the store, and my friend lives on like this such a windy street that I was like, okay, when you pull out, like you just got to get in there because if not, like you're never gonna get out. So my GPS was like making me take a whole another route all the way around. I thought like it was a shortcut. So I pull into this road and I'm like, I don't know where I'm at. So I know I'm going so slow. I'm like, I don't know which street this is. I've never been on it. So I'm going down it. I see this little old lady on the side of the street. And, she's kind of like in the way and she moves. And I just like keep trekking along and I'm like waiting for the GPS to be like, go straight. It literally tells me to turn around. So I'm like, why did it make me go on the street? So I literally turn around. And as I'm coming back, I see the little old lady, like she wanted to fucking fight. She was at the end of the street, but she was like not moving. She was not moving. She was like in the street and she then put a finger up to me like I'm waiting for her. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I just knew in my gut, I was like, this is giving Karen energy. Like I already know where this is going to go. But in my heart of hearts, I thought maybe this little old lady was lost. Maybe she was confused. I don't know. So then her slow ass is taking forever to get to my car, but she's still having her hand up like I'm waiting. So I'm like, okay, this feels very
Oh,
like
and you stopped.
yeah, this feels very entitled behavior. So I waited. She comes up to my car and then goes like this. Like, I'm she has pecking order. So I'm now listening to her and I'm gonna roll down my window. So I roll down my window and she goes, you really need to slow down. What are you doing? What are you doing here? What are you like? It was like she was like grilling me about coming down. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, so this is where growth comes in. Even though her Karen ass was at really just asking to get cussed
This is
out.
where boundaries come in.
Well, I was like, look, I have a grandmother, so I wouldn't want someone to talk crazy to my grandmom, but I know my grandmom has more goddamn sense than this to run up on a stranger's car and pull up on them like that, looking for a fight. So when she said that, I looked at her and I said, girl, and I rolled up my window and just to piss her off, I was like, "Durr," and like sped out because I was like, I was not even going fast. I was going so slow because I didn't know where I was. So she just was like bored or wanted to fight. And then I literally looked in my rearview mirror and she's like, and I was like, no,
Yeah,
she's
you're
not
in
getting.
Beverly Hills. I mean, like, yeah.
I was like, Karen, not today. I don't got
Yeah,
energy for
you're
you.
not in that situation in Beverly Hills that's not gonna occur.
Pulling
That's
up to my
probably all she
car.
has to do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she was bored as shit. I'm like, or she must have been waiting for someone to come down that and just attack.
yeah,
Like that's what it felt like. When someone's just waiting and you just feel like they're gonna get something out of this. Like to me, it felt like
yeah,
she really was waiting for someone like me to come down the street and go after them.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not gonna check her old ass. I have a
Yeah,
grandmother.
you looked at her in her rear view mirror.
Yeah, no, I literally did a side eye to her
Yeah.
like I went, girl, rolled the window up and was like, I'm out. Like, I'm not even gonna go here with you because I know you
Was she
want
like
to.
this at all in the background?
Yeah, she was all like, it was all flustered and pissed. And I'm like, I kind of felt like I gave her the opposite reaction of what she wanted because I was like, I'm not gonna argue with this old lady for
I
being.
mean, pretty ballsy of a little lady coming to a door and like,
That's what I'm saying. What happens if I didn't stop the car? People are nuts.
yeah.
She needs
Or
more.
could have had a whole different person with a different reaction.
Yeah, she needs to get more damn sense, and someone needs to look out for her. Well, I know we're excited about today's guest and the topic that we're talking about and boundaries. You and I have gone in different directions sometimes about how we view, like, is this how we should handle this family member? Like, are we just putting family members on pedestals just because they're family? We have very different thinking on this in terms of how we view boundaries and relationships with families. And we've had some traumatic experiences like we had an aunt call our home to try to out me and no one picked up the call and it was when you had the old school house phone and the voicemail went over to the whole house and she was essentially trying to out me and I'm like I would never like that's not an aunt to me. Like I'm never going to look at that person the same. That is never going to be my family for somebody who would try to do harm like that. And I'll never forget you picked up that phone so quick and cussed her ass the fuck out. And guess what? She did not call back after that.
That was a boundary line.
That was a boundary line. But
That
like
is boundary line.
Barb doesn't play about her kids. It's always so hard for me because sometimes people always do, oh, well, they're your family. Like you should do, and I'm like, just because you hold a title to me doesn't mean anything. Personally, how I feel. And I feel like, people have different boundaries with different people, how they proceed to move through that in life and how they want to navigate that. And I think it's very subjective given the circumstance. But I've always had a big issue where like my chosen family, like my people who are like friends that have turned into family, that holds more value than somebody just with like a title. Just because you're an aunt or an uncle or a cousin or a grandparent, that doesn't mean anything to me if you're not being a part of my life like that. I wonder if this is something that somebody would think should be a boundary, is that when my mom graduated college, I was so proud of her for graduating college because she graduated like around her 40th birthday and it was a monumental time. And she had this graduation picture that I was so proud of her to have. And I felt like it was not getting the recognition it deserved. It was not hung up in her house. And I felt like nobody was appreciating it. So guess what I did? I hung it up in my room, in my childhood room. And I put it next to like all my like little soccer trophies or like my T-ball trophies and things that I had on a shelf. And I put it there, and I got made fun of for having a picture of my mom's graduation in my bedroom. Like, it was like you walked in and it's like, here's your mom. She's there, right there, looking at you in her
And I
graduation
don't think it was
picture.
I think it was bigger than an 8x10 too. Yeah,
It
it
was in,
wasn't just like an 8x10 or a 5x7. I think it was like the 11x12.
what you're saying is that I had a shrine of my mom in my bedroom.
Well, I know someday, unfortunately, I know at my future when you'll have like my little vase with the picture.
I mean, you want it to be in a table, so I don't know if that's even going to happen. So,
See?
is that weird that I put my mom's picture of her like?
No, it's not weird.
Is anybody else listening think it's weird that I put a picture of my mom, a bigger picture, so to say, on a shelf in my bedroom?
It made me like think you were so proud of me.
I was so proud of you, but I
I
feel like
know.
people interpreted that as weird, that or creepy, that I have a picture of my mom that was her graduation picture and it was just hung up in my room. It was like, why is this in here?
You were like 14, 15.
That might make it even weirder. I don't know if that could have like went down
Does
a little.
that give a whole other people like it's not like you were 5.
Hey, you're 25 and I just walked in your room and there's a big picture of your mom. Imagine bringing people into that room to be like, you're like seeing them or dating them and they open it up and they're like, this guy has a picture of his mom's graduation picture in his bedroom. Okay. Yeah, it's like so maybe that should have been a boundary, but I was proud nonetheless.
I know. That warmed my heart. I didn't make you take it down.
Sure. Well,
On that note,
today we have on a guest that I'm so excited to have join us. I love her social media platforms. I love her podcast. I love everything that she's doing. Jessica Miller, she has a platform called Mind Your Boundaries, which if you don't know about it, you need to get into it because it is really just so refreshing to see somebody talk about like their relationships with family and friends and their boundaries with them and what that looks like. And I think everybody can relate to that in some way, shape, or form. So we're excited to talk to Jess about what does that look like, boundaries, what does that mean? So I can't wait to chat with her about it.
Good topic.
Well, let's welcome Jess to the podcast. I love that, Jess, we got the memo all black today.
Oh yeah, what's going on, Barb?
I don't know. I
We got the same pen
color.
Necklace.
Yes.
Okay, so we're pulling a little bit of something from everybody.
Yeah. That's my little Gemini medallion.
Nice. Awesome.
I'm so excited to have you on. I was like, I love your platform. Like, I love the topics that you're talking about. So if we're going to talk about an episode with boundaries,
yeah,
Mind Your Boundaries, the CEO right here, we need to talk about it with her.
I'm honored to be here. You guys have something so special. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you.
You've been so supportive. Like, that means so much. And like I said, your platform is like what we aspire to have one day. So coming from
you will.
that really means
way
a lot.
bigger. Way bigger. I have to give you a compliment, Barb. because I've binged your episodes. And when I had my phone call with Paul, I texted my mom and I'm just like, okay, don't do anything else today. We're just going to binge this podcast. And so I was binging, she was binging. And then we talked, I think after 4 episodes, and she's like, I just love how well this couple gets along. And I'm like, that's her son.
Oh, she really thought that we were.
How could you not catch up on that with all the talk, Mom?
As I'm like
telling her.
As we had like episodes where I'm like, yeah, Mom, I had this one night stand. Oh, Mom, I did that.
Well, I don't know if you heard like in the one episode, it was our first one about dating. She said, Paul, I think you were your mom's mother in another life.
Oh. Love it. I just love it.
And I was like, I don't know if that's I don't know how to take that, but okay.
Yeah, like we'll just go with it. That was her favorite episode.
You like that one?
Yeah, she loved that because she's a widow. So she was just like, yes, I hear all of that.
Good.
Well, I said that's nice to hear that, because I said even for my mom, it's like nice for other women to like, she has friends now that are like in her age group that are like going through divorce or just like refining themselves. And I'm like, I think that's a powerful episode for women to hear other women going through that,
Oh yeah. And I truly believe just in our culture, like 50s are our new 30s. Like that's just kind of when we fully come into ourselves now. And yeah, it's just a beautiful era.
I try to tell myself that on some days. Some days getting out of bed is a little harder than other days.
I was going to say that works in Barb's favor because she's been 30 something years old since I've been alive. So here we are.
I'm like, I don't know how I have a 32-year-old when I'm only in my 30s.
So weird.
So weird.
Jess, I am a fan of your work. That is why you're on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Mind your boundaries. Anybody can resonate, I feel like, with the topic that you cover. You have so many hidden gems.
I have a clinical practice and I've been in my practice for 12 years and we are just completely oversaturated. And I kind of wanted to do something more where I could help more, like be one to many versus just one-on-one, because you can only help so many people that way. So I thought, well, I could start a podcast, and I just started talking about boundaries just in general. But one video I posted was just a boundary I set with my mother-in-law, and it blew up. And I'm like, oh. And then I just started talking more. And then people just started DMing so many questions about their in-laws. And I'm like, okay, there's definitely something here. But just in general, we always, like in every single person I meet, like clinically, we're always talking about boundaries because we need them just for our like mental, emotional, physical health. So it just kind of fit right in.
Hello, hold on, I'm calling my mom podcast is all about the boundaries that we do not have with one another. So I'm like,
I know I grew up without any boundaries. Like my mom and I are completely enmeshed. And even in grad school, people are like, you need to work on that. And I'm like, I don't really see a problem with this.
Yeah, right.
That's what people say. Like, do you guys have boundaries? I'm like, no, but
no.
Like, I would feel offended if he said, Mom, we need to lay some boundaries. I'd be like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about?
What did I do wrong?
Boundaries.
I feel like we've gotten
I
better.
put them up with everybody else, but I'm like, my kids' boundaries? No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
We've gotten better. We've gotten better.
Well, I feel like boundaries is a new thing too. I feel like, with me growing up, if I ever said to my mom or dad, like, I have boundaries, they would be like, yeah, there's the door. So I feel like it's a new thing. I mean, it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. But I feel like, generational, there was no word such as boundaries.
No, I totally agree.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. What are boundaries for people who are listening who like don't even know what that is? Like, what is a boundary?
Like for me, I kind of had to make my own definition because in my earlier time, trying to figure out if I could even set them, because my husband's very like black and white. And I just was always like, that's so harsh. I'm just too nice for that. But really, I was just a pushover. But for me, I define it as if it's something that will keep me safe, and that can be mentally, emotionally, physically, obviously, something that helps like keep me in line with my values. So I want to make sure I live a life that I'm proud of. So I need boundaries to support that. And then also boundaries to me help my relationships, because when I didn't have boundaries, I was starting to resent the crap out of people because they were just taking from me because I allowed it. And then when I would set limits, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like our relationship is all of a sudden a lot better.
Or worse.
Yeah.
How do you go about starting to set those boundaries?
I think it's really getting quiet just with yourself, just kind of spending time. For me, I had to start with my values. And so it started protecting time around the most important thing for me, which was making memories with my kids. And so just really starting with my core values of like making memories. That's what I feel like I'm here to do on earth, and just be a good person and make memories. So whenever anything would like impede on taking my time or making me like a worse parent, that's when I started to realize, oh, that's where I have to set a limit, because I just don't like the life I'm living.
You know, I've always been a big component of like boundaries with like family members and like holding boundaries and creating that. I was kind of one of the first ones in my family to really like, I'd be like, hey, I don't care if you're a parent, you're an aunt and uncle, you're this, you're that. Like, if it's not vibing and meshing, like, I need to set something. Like, because I think my mom sometimes was like a little bit more like old
Oh,
school.
not sometimes. I was totally like, there is no boundary. So when he would sit and be like, Mom, I want, and I would just be like, you can't do that. No, like,
Yeah. Yeah. So he
unfortunately,
just had like a strong sense of autonomy.
absolutely.
Yeah. I love that.
Still
And
does. Still
yeah.
does.
But I
Yes.
think every family kind of hopefully has somebody that kind of breaks out of that, like just generational patterns that we have. We all have that. And I would be that one now to show my mom how to like just have limits. Like, she is still a people pleaser, and that's where I learned it from. All you're here to do is serve people, like, until you're sick. That's kind of the way she lives her life. And she now can see me like I'm living a different way. And so I think for Paul, he was just like breaking that pattern and teaching you that you could break the pattern too.
Is there a difference between setting boundaries with friends and setting boundaries with family?
I think so. I would go back to like my value. And then maybe if it was like my mom or like a family member versus a friend, I might be more flexible on my boundary. So let's say I have family time is on Sunday, and my friend needs me to do something on Sunday. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm not available. Like, that's family time. And then let's say my mom has a leak in her basement and she needs like all kids on deck to help her. Well, like, I'm not going to be a dick and just be like,
Yeah.
sorry, it's family time. And then just like be eating popcorn knowing that she's drowning in her basement. Like,
Yeah.
so, like maybe some flexibility depending on the level of the relationship.
There is different kind of boundaries, right?
Yeah, I love the type where it feels like we're working together on something and we're benefiting from it. So like if you honor it, that'd be awesome, and this is the mutual benefit that we get from it. But I used to think if I set a boundary, it was all on the other person to change, and then I would get so upset when they didn't change, because I'd be like, you must not love me.
Yeah.
And I would just get so hurt by it. And then when I realized it actually, if it's my boundary, it's my behavioral change to make. And then I didn't feel like I was being mean, because I was the one that has to alter my behavior to hold the line versus making someone else change their dynamic.
Well, that expectation probably is so heavy too, because
Yeah.
you're expecting them to meet you where you're at, but they might not emotionally be where you want them to be. So you're like you said, like, you don't love me enough to get there, you know? I have a question for you, and this is kind of, leading into more of like the umbrella of this topic, is like, just because you're aunt doesn't mean I feel like you're an aunt. Like, just because you're an uncle doesn't mean I feel like you're an uncle. Just because you're my dad doesn't mean that I feel like you're my dad. You know what like that title to me has always hold so much like
Wait.
stock and value. And I
Yeah.
don't feel like if you step up to the plate, to me, you're not that. Like, we have a neighbor who we grew up with in my family home, like at my childhood home. She's like my aunt, but she's not blood related to me. Like,
Yeah.
that's somebody who would like hold an aunt title compared to maybe like somebody else, or you know what I mean? Like, there are certain family members that I just don't feel like I grew up with that I didn't like connect with like that.
Mhm.
What is your take on that? Is that like a generational thing? Is that maybe just like a personal thing of like, just because you're a family member doesn't mean that I have to like, I don't know. I always feel like it's a complicated thing. Like, it doesn't mean that I have to have that relationship with you if it's not there. Like, I think people hold so much value in the title, but like, if you're not stepping up to the plate, it's like, what
You
is
don't
that?
get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's both. I think it was definitely generational because, in like and boomers and Gen X, I believe that loyalty, like family loyalty, was like one of your top like values. And so you just didn't even question it. But
Yeah.
then I think for millennials and Gen Z, we're really starting to question, well, what does this mean? What does an actual like label title mean? And I think for us, it's like emotional safety. And if you don't create that with me, like that type of relationship, you don't get that title. And so I have clients or just know people like friends of the family where they'll call their father, like they'll call their, parents by their first name. And really what that does is it creates just this emotional distance between what I think you should be and like what I want you to be and what you actually are.
Yeah.
And that's like an emotion. That's like a boundary right there. I created distance.
I said, my mom, I feel like she's kind of come around. She kind of has had, I would say, interesting dynamics with her parents that like she kind of had that mindset where it's like, maybe they didn't treat me the best at times or blah, blah, blah. But like they're my parents. So I'm just going to accept, like, I don't
Mhm.
personally accept that. Like, I don't, that's kind of going back to my first statement to you is like, just because you hold a dad title, if you're not stepping up to the plate, my boundary is that it's just not going to be that relationship.
There are some parents that it's almost like it's a 12 or 13-year-old trapped in an adult body. And
Yes.
it's wild. It's
Yes.
wild. Like looking at a
Yeah.
60-year-old and you're just like, what in the actual F is going on here? When you realize, oh, like they just can't get there. Whatever it is, it's coming to a place of acceptance and then setting boundaries that protect yourself. And sometimes it's so toxic that it does take like a severing of the relationship.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like that's where I'm at. Like, and I said it's shitty to feel that way, but I'm just all about like, hey, step up to the plate, take the accountability, and I can receive that. Like I don't my
Mhm.
expectations are going to be low, but
Mhm.
like you said, just saying like, hey, I messed up, I screwed up, I'm sorry. I was going to ask Jess, I wanted to get her hot take on this family situation that we had, and I was curious to hear what she thought.
What family situation is that? There's been a lot, so you got to narrow that one down.
I know. I was kind of like thinking about it. I was like, oh, I think this would be interesting because this was a firm boundary that I put up. This is going to be long winded, so I'm going to try to do it as quickly TikTok version as I can. My mom's dad and his wife, my mom lost her mom like a couple years ago. It
Oh,
was
I'm
around the
sorry.
holidays. And it was very like sensitive. Obviously, it was huge, like that was the only parent my mom had lost. It was, a big, massive loss to her. There was just this huge family. I'm telling you, this is like some Real Housewives in New Jersey, like christening, like table flipping, like it was really nuts. But it was literally
Mhm.
on Christmas Day. And I feel like tensions were high because of, my mom losing her mom and her siblings were there. And there was like a huge blowout amongst adults in that house. And this was at my grandparents, and I was like 16, 17. My brother was like 12 or 13 maybe. And they kicked my family out of their home. And like my grandfather's like wife like gave me an attitude, and like it was just really terrible. And I had never seen my mom so upset about that, like losing her mom, being kicked out of her family's house because of what other adult things were happening that pissed people off, like almost fist fight. And it was a hot ass mess. And I just had never seen my mom so visibly upset over that it pissed me
Mm.
off.
Yeah.
Me and my brother never got an apology over that from my grandparents. I got a year later, like a birthday card with money in it. And I was like, no, 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 no. I don't work like that. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want your checks. I'd rather you just give me an apology and say, like, I'm sorry for hurting. Like, to me, it shows how much I love, like, my grandfather's daughter. Like, that I love my mom that much that, like, I can't believe that somebody would do that to her. You know what I mean? In that
Mhm.
vulnerable moment. So, like, it's been, I wanna say almost like 10 years, and I have not spoken to him directly or that his wife or my grandfather. I've not talking to them at all because I've never gotten an apology, and I wrote them a long letter saying, like, "I will not receive your money until I get an apology," because I just feel like that is really tacky and tasteless for me to accept money for people that I'm putting a boundary at. And I've never gotten that apology from them since.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. I'm so sorry. How horrific and unfortunate. That's really.
It was a lot. Me and my dad really have talked it out many, many, many times. I mean, we went a couple of years without talking at all, unfortunately, but we talked it out many, many times. And yeah, I think I put up my boundaries of where the conversation was going to go. And we're definitely in a better place now.
And do you feel like your dad is like able to say sorry to Paul and then he's choosing not to? Or do you feel like he doesn't have that ability?
No, he has said that he would like to talk to Paul. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're still waiting for like an invite to have the conversation, like from your grandpa?
Like, is it heartless of me to be like, I don't know if I even want to do it at this point because it's been so long gone. So many different things have happened in my life. So many important things have happened that I don't know if it's worth it, you know? And I'm like, is that bitchy? Like, I don't, you know, like, I'm like, is it heartless? I don't know.
But again, that comes, you know, the same with the situation with his dad. I'm always like, you just don't want to have those open feelings. You know, you can still have that relationship and still have a boundary.
So you believe he could have a relationship with his dad. He just needs to set boundaries that are healthy for him, but he's not there yet.
His dad's not there yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it help your mom if she felt like you had resolved things with her dad? Because it seems like you love your mom like crazy amounts.
Yeah. Well, and I said, I'm okay. I'm like happy for her to get that because I know she really wanted that.
Well, I think also because he was willing, once we got to that point, to sit and really listen to me. And again, we came, you know, full circle, and there was apologies and stuff. So I think that definitely helped. I think if it was just no apologies, there was no boundaries, it was just whatever. But I think, you know, we really went over a lot of, you know, past trauma with her growing up, and, you know, we went from A to Z. And I think we probably just needed to do that. Like, it just was, that blow up was kind of like the opening of doors of like past stuff also.
That's incredible. That's I bet you that was such a healing conversation with your dad for you.
Yeah.
I think, Paul, for me, you know, I would have to really just think about what the relationship would mean to me for my grandpa. Like, if I were to have a conversation, I think, you know, I'm probably terrible at like asking this because I always think about like karmic debt, and I just think about things that come back around. And if I don't learn lessons myself, then I have to watch it through my kids. I'm like weird like that. And so I almost think for that, just to make sure I didn't have like something bad happen to me when I get older, I think I would just let him apologize so that he would have that peace. So even if I'm not going to get anything out of the relationship with my grandpa at this point, because I'm just so in my life and he's not a part of it, and I just don't even know where I would plug him in, I think I would have the conversation, allow him to apologize, to right that wrong to me so that he could have that peace of mind, like, you know, just in his life. But maybe that's the people pleaser in me. I don't know.
No.
Maybe I have to be a little bit more bitchy.
Yeah. Well, I got that for you, Jess. I got that part. So I just am one person that I'm like, you know, excuse my language, but I'm like, you don't fuck with me or my family. Like, that is a deadline to me. Like, if you hurt my mom, I'm not going to be as accepting for her to take that on. Like, because at the end of the day, I was like, oh my God, like, what? I would never like have my mom at my home and make her feel that way. You know what I mean? Like, I would feel awful. So it was just like, I don't know. That's what I think I struggle with as a human myself, is like, you know, these people, you know, I don't have control over what they're going to do and the necessary steps that they have to take. But I'm always like, oh my gosh, am I, you know, should I feel guilty for feeling bitchy that like I'm so like, no, you know, but then I'm also like, I haven't had that person on the receiving end also step up either. So it's like, I don't feel like it's my job as a child, as a grandchild, to like make those decisions because I'm like, I'm the kid at the end of the day.
Yeah, but then I feel guilty because I'm like, as close as and as much as I love my children, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm doing something wrong because they don't talk. You know what I mean?
That's not your fault.
But it's also a different relationship. Like, it's a generation removed. Like, that's your dad.
Yeah.
Like, there's like a completely different bond like between you guys, and you had that huge conversation.
Yeah.
Like, huge. I mean, Paul, you're basically saying like, I am like the pit bull. Like I will protect my family. I protect the people that I love, till the end. And that's just who you are. And I think that speaks volumes to your character. And I think it's interesting that you ask yourself, should I feel guilty? I think if you're asking like, should I be inserting some guilt here? Like I wouldn't go looking for guilt. Like if you don't feel bad and you're resolved with the relationship and you're okay where it stands, then maybe just like be at peace with it.
Yeah.
Like maybe not be asking yourself like, should I be feeling worse about this than I am? Like maybe that's your authentic feeling about where it stands. You've resolved it.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I had, and that's what I said. I mean, I also feel like when so much time has passed by,
Yeah.
I'm not somebody that you could just like go to dinner with and I'm like, "Oh, hey girl, like, we haven't talked in 10 years. You really hurt, like, what's up?"
Well, you also was 16 and now you're 32. So it's
Yeah.
a child to a grown man kind of mentality also.
Yeah.
Different thoughts, the way you process everything. Yeah.
Right. And things, we take things on like very big as children. Like it's very scary. Everything is huge when we're kids and
Yeah.
we don't feel like we have all the agencies. And so you also might have taken that experience a little bit different. Like it might have been different for you than it is for Paul.
Yeah. Well, I also always felt like if you set boundaries with people, you may lose them.
That's a common belief. Yeah.
Barb has a big abandonment issue. Gee, I wonder why.
No matter how our dynamics are, how they treat me or anything, they need to. Yeah.
She has a very big thing with, like, there's been times where, like, we don't fight at all, like, really, like, I mean, fighting meaning, like, I'm like, "Mom, you're, like, annoying, like, stop," like, it's, like,
Yeah.
something like that. I'm not, like, cutthroat, and, like, there was
Yeah.
one time where, like, she called me because we got into, like, a little tiff that she really thought that I was not gonna speak to her, and I'm like, that's what's so fucked up about this is that, like, that's her own family's doing to make her feel that, like, her own kids could do that to her, and I'm like, "Mom, I would never do that to you."
Yeah, like, I called him, like, bawling my eyes out, like, he was like, "What is wrong?" He's like, "Do you
Yeah.
ever think that I would" and I'm like, "I don't know," like, yeah, so I'm like, I never want boundaries because I'm like, no, to me, my thought process, you set boundaries, you lose people.
You could lose takers. So the people in your life that are using you up, they would find another host, but the people that love you and that it's a mutual relationship, they're going to stick around.
Mm, that's yeah,
So you weed out the takers. And
yeah,
and those are the ones you need firm boundaries around because they'll use you dry.
Jess, could you say the ones who love you will stick around? That was powerful. I love that.
I know, that was really powerful.
If you do set a boundary with somebody and they leave, that means that they were always going to leave. They were just using you and they'll go and find another host. But the people that love you and want to have a mutual relationship with you, they'll stick around.
I love that.
I feel like you're like one of our friends. Like, I'm like, I
Oh, I
felt
know.
like
I was so looking forward to this. I'm like, we could just be friends in another life for sure.
no,
Like,
seriously.
your podcast.
I wish you didn't live in like the middle of the country because I'd be like, girl, come get a
Let's
glass of
hang
wine with
out.
me. Like, yeah, up the street. Like, let's go to the Abbey or something.
In my Minnesota voice.
Yeah.
No.
Mom. She wanted to do that. So
I
bad.
wanted to do that. But you didn't even have when you said it, you didn't even have it like I do it.
I told Jess when I talked to her, I could hear like a little bit of it, but can you hear Jersey from my mom?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's like my favorite accent.
Really?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
What do I sound? Anything? Jersey?
No, you just have like a really like soothing voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really good voice.
I think I
I'm
worked really
trying to
hard.
correct the Jersey,
Me
but
too.
I'm a lot older. It's just in me.
It's like the best. It's just such a wholesome accent. I just trust people right away when they're from like Jersey. I really do because they're just going to tell me how it is.
See,
Well, I like when you hear actors and stuff, they're like, "Oh, Jersey is like the hardest."
or it's like the
accent
Philly,
to
like the
do.
South Philly accent, like
Yeah,
Philly
to
accent.
do and to get rid of.
I have to tell you another thing. Your first podcast episode, you showed the Hanes t-shirt and undies. And I'm like, oh my God, Mom, because my dad lived in Hanes and then the Long Johns. And so we would have visitors. And you know how you like stand on your sofa, like where sometimes guys will, like put their leg up.
Oh my God. So
So we have company over and they're talking, and my dad's just in long johns and a t-shirt, and they're like dressed up. This could be Sunday after church, and he's just like, yeah,
his
like,
junk's all out. Yeah.
oh my God.
Junk's all out. It's like breakfast out.
I
Yeah.
saw that and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Yeah, so our family is definitely like
Yeah.
that too. Yeah.
We have a lot of stories. I
hilarious.
mean, then you heard that like our grandparents like were sleeping with each other at one point. Like,
Yes, my brother and his wife, the sister-in-law that I was like, whoo, you are colorful. Their parents, when they were dating, like I think it was her mom and his dad, I can't remember which way it went. They got together and got married before they got married. So then they were step siblings.
get out.
I was just like,
Oh my
when you
God.
said cross-pollination, I'm like, that's hysterical.
Well, you know what? Thanks, Jess, because you just made me feel like, okay, my family isn't that effed up then.
Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all.
There's other families that have to have this craziness in it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's what makes it the best stories.
It really does. I was like, we're only scratching the surface of how far down we've gone the rabbit hole with the stories of our families. So I'm like,
Yeah,
give
but
us.
I'm at the age now where I'll talk about it. Before I was like, absolutely not. We will not talk about this. This
Mhm.
family is crazy. It's going to
Yeah.
stay in these four walls. That is it. Now I'm like, I don't. Again, boundaries. I'm like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people relate to that. Like right away when you were telling that story, I was just like, yes.
Well, because I said to her, it's not a reflection on her. I'm like, you
gosh,
can't
no.
control other people in your family, what they do. Like, I know how we show up and who we are, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah. All your stories are so relatable.
No, you have been very supportive. Truly, I told you, I could say it a million times, but that
Yeah,
means so
thank
much
you.
to us. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm trying
keep
to,
going. It's so
yeah.
slow in the beginning, but just keep going. It's such a you guys have like the coolest dynamic.
Thank
I told you,
you.
Mom, that she said that. She was like, don't stop. Like, what you
Don't
have is
stop.
special. I know.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for
Sometimes I'm
saying.
like, Paul, we can't talk about that.
I feel like the times where you're like, don't talk about it, that's probably the times where people are going to be like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm like, your platform is literally like what we are in a podcast as well. Like, it's like, we're open, we're transparent, we're talking about family members, we're telling
Yeah.
our experience, and like other people have to respect that. And it is what it is.
Yep.
You know, I'm obsessed with you. So I want everybody else who
Aw.
doesn't already know you, who's
I'm
missing out,
obsessed. I'm
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
to know where they can check you out at.
Yes. So it's just at Mind Your Boundaries.
I love
That's
that
it.
minor
It's
boundary.
brilliant. And I'm co-signing her, and everybody should be listening because I'm obsessed. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so
The
much.
stuff
This is
that you are afraid to talk about, but she's just talking about it, and it's real shit, which we all need to hear. So
Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
I know,
Been a
I
huge
adore
fan of
you.
you guys.
Thanks, Jess. We hope
I
you come
know.
back on.
Yeah, anytime. You guys are amazing.
Like when we have a dilemma, our new segment's gonna be called Jess.
Oh, Jess, I know. I'm gonna say I'm not giving her a boundary. She's just gonna have to come on when I'm like, Jess, I need you on right now. You're coming on.
I'll tell my clients, I'll just be like, I'll just be a second.
Like,
Out.
we have you on speed dial now.
Yeah, literally. No, you're the best. I couldn't have asked for a better guest. So thank you.
I know.
For
Thank
coming
you
on and
so
chatting
much.
with us.
Oh, thank you for saying that, because I'm like, God, did I even sound like ridiculous? Like I was telling him, I was listening to your guests, and I'm like, oh my God, they're TED talkers, and I'm like, geez, I'm like
No,
just like
I cut this.
cornfield girl.
No, I cut this. First of all, you're so relatable. So,
I know.
And you're comforting. And I think that's always where I click with the guests, that we feel like we know you already.
All right. You guys have an awesome day.
All right,
Thank
Jess,
you.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Bye.
Bye. She's so sweet. I love
Oh my
her.
God. Yes, we have to have a segment called Jess.
I know, literally. I'm like, we're
Like
incorporating more
literally.
out of pocket Facebook posts and call Jess.
Yes. But
She,
see how like we can go in with one kind of idea, and then boundaries can take you to so many different things, you know?
well, that's the beauty of the Hold On, I'm Calling My Mom podcast, because I'm
Mhm.
like, listen, we come in and, I felt there were so many times as we were chatting with her that I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think of it this way. And then that's
Yeah.
when it's a good ass guest that you have on the podcast, and great topics that you're talking about, because a lot of things click for me. So
Light bulb moments.
yeah,
That's what Oprah calls them.
love it. Yes, queen. The big O.
The big O calls
Big
them light
O.
bulb moments, and they
When
were totally light bulb moments
Well, we need
And
to have the
sometimes it takes someone else, you know what I mean, to sit and, point them out to you. And also, as you're asking it and saying it, you're like, oh,
yeah, it
it
just
makes
makes it
sense. Yeah.
more clearer, gives you that
Yeah.
validation.
I think everybody has issues with boundaries and how to set them and what they are they good? Are they bad? You know what I mean? Are you going to lose someone? Everything. I think all those questions, and I think Jess totally answered them amazingly.
Instead of the big O moments that we have, we're gonna say they're the big mind your boundaries moment, light bulb moments. That's what we're gonna say now. Yes, Jess will definitely be joining us again because I could have just kept talking to her for
I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We hope you took something away about boundaries as much as we did, because I know me and Barb are gonna be like, "Oh, well, Jess said this." Now we're gonna start applying these things more in our lives and have a different perspective on things. So, thank you so much for everybody listening. As always, please follow us on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Hold On, I'm Calling My Mom. Make sure that you are subscribed to us on YouTube and, like our videos, show us some love over there at Hold On, I'm Calling My Mom. Make sure that you are subscribed and you are following us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure that you're showing some love over there. Send it to a friend, leave a review. And as always, the door and the invitation is open that you can leave us any topics you want to talk about at Hold On, I'm Calling My Mom podcast at gmail.com. Shoot us an email because we love hearing what you guys have to say. And as always, thank you for the love.
All right. I'm hanging up now. Bye.
Call you later. Love you.
See you later. Love you.